When he first set out to compare the Bible and the Koran, he didn't expect what was to come. He thought he knew what to expect: two different religious texts from two different worlds. But as he started digging deeper, something incredible happened. He realized that there was far more common ground between these two books than he had ever imagined. It wasn't just about the surface-level similarities. It was about the core principles that both faiths share, that both religions teach, even though they may be written in different ways or spoken from different perspectives. You see, at the heart of both the Bible and the Koran, there's a message that transcends human division, that connects us all in ways we might not even realize. Both books speak about the same Creator, the same moral compass, the same call to justice, mercy, and righteousness. As he spent more time with the Bible and the Koran, he saw that the teachings of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, are rooted in similar values. Both spoke of kindness, humility, love for one another, and the need for people to live in peace with each other. Both prophets emphasized the importance of faith, of submitting to God, and of acting justly toward your fellow man. It wasn't just about rules or commandments, it was about a way of life. They both gave people a path, a guide, a direction. And when you dig deeper, you start seeing more similarities, more shared messages of compassion and unity. But it wasn't just the prophets that stood side by side in these sacred texts. The Bible and the Koran both emphasize the importance of family, of community, of treating others with respect. The Koran speaks about the rights of women, the rights of children, and the importance of caring for the needy. The Bible echoes this with its teachings about love, charity, and helping those who are less fortunate. When you look at both books, they are not about division, they are about bringing people together. They are about healing, about creating a world where people can coexist in peace, where justice prevails, and where human dignity is upheld. One of the most powerful discoveries in this comparison came when he looked at the stories that both books share: the story of Adam and Eve, Noah and the flood, the trials of Abraham, Moses, and so many more. These stories aren't just told for the sake of telling a story. They carry lessons, powerful lessons about human nature, about the consequences of actions, about the importance of faith and obedience to God. They carry lessons about the highs and lows of life, about struggles and triumphs. These are stories that both the Bible and the Koran carry, each with its own lens, but each with the same core message: that humanity must stay on the path of righteousness, despite the temptations, the trials, and the tribulations that come our way. And that's the thing about comparison: it's not about finding differences to argue over, but about finding the similarities that can unite us. It's about recognizing that both books, in their own way, point to a higher purpose. They remind us that we are all part of a greater plan, that we are all part of something bigger than ourselves, and they call on us to do our part in making the world a better place, in living up to the values of justice, kindness, and compassion. It was in this discovery that he realized how much both the Bible and the Koran shared in common. He had been shocked by what he found, but not in a negative way. He was shocked because he hadn't realized how much unites these two great texts. He hadn't realized how much we are all connected through faith and through the pursuit of righteousness. When you start to look past the divisions, past the misunderstandings, and past the prejudices that sometimes cloud our vision, you begin to see the truth that both the Bible and the Koran speak to the soul, speak to the heart, and speak to the Creator's design for humanity. It's a design that calls for peace, love, and unity. It's a message that transcends the pages of any book and touches the very core of who we are. And when you see this, you can't help but be humbled. You can't help but be grateful. Grateful that, despite all our differences, despite all the noise in the world, there's a message that still resonates, a message that still has the power to bring us together, to heal us, and to guide us to a better way of living. So, when he compared the Bible and the Koran, what he discovered was something that shook him to his core. It wasn't just about comparing two books. It was about discovering a shared truth that transcends religion, transcends culture, and transcends time. What he discovered was that we are all connected, and in that connection, we find the strength to move forward together. When he began to explore the role of faith in both the Bible and the Quran, he found something that hit him deeply. Faith wasn't just a concept. It was the foundation. It was the glue that held everything together, the force that inspired the words, the actions, and the lives of those who came before. In both texts, faith in the Creator is the cornerstone of everything. It's what drives people to act justly, to be merciful, to uphold truth, and to treat others with dignity. But it wasn't just about believing in a higher power. It was about how that belief shaped the individual and the community. In the Bible, faith is introduced as the unwavering belief in God's existence and in His promises. From the very beginning in the story of Adam and Eve, it's clear that faith was intended to be the guiding principle of human life. The Bible teaches that faith without works is dead, that belief must be matched by action. The faith Abraham had when he was willing to sacrifice his son is perhaps one of the most profound examples of faith in the Bible. It wasn't just about believing that God existed, it was about trusting God's plan, even when it didn't make sense, even when the road was dark and uncertain. This kind of faith didn't just lead to personal salvation. It was a faith that transformed lives, that created nations, that shaped history. As he turned to the Quran, he saw a similar but distinct understanding of faith. In Islam, faith, or iman, is also centered around belief in the one true God, Allah, and in the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But the Quran goes deeper, emphasizing the importance of sincerity in faith, that faith is not merely an external declaration, but an internal conviction that should manifest in all aspects of life. The Quran speaks of faith as a trust, a bond between the believer and God. It calls on its followers to believe in what they cannot see, to trust in the unseen, and to act in accordance with that trust. The Quran speaks of faith as something that is tested, and how believers are meant to find peace even in the trials of life, trusting that God's wisdom is beyond human understanding. The Quran continually reminds believers that faith isn't passive. It's something that should push you to do good deeds, to treat others with kindness, and to seek justice and truth in all aspects of life. But it wasn't just about the individual's relationship with God. Both texts emphasize the communal aspect of faith. In the Bible, faith isn't meant to be lived in isolation. The book of Acts speaks about the early Christian community coming together, sharing in their faith, supporting one another, and spreading the message of God's love. Faith in the Bible calls for unity, for believers to come together in prayer, in worship, and in service to others. Similarly, the Quran stresses the importance of community, the Ummah, as the foundation of faith. The Quran calls on its followers to support one another, to stand together in the face of hardship, and to help those in need. Faith in the Quran is not just about the individual's personal relationship with God. It is about building a righteous society where people work together to uphold justice, compassion, and peace. One of the most powerful aspects of faith in both texts is the emphasis on the importance of surrender. In the Bible, faith is described as surrendering to God's will, as shown in the prayer of Jesus, "Not my will, but yours be done." This theme of surrender is mirrored in the Quran, where the word Islam itself means submission to the will of God. The Quran teaches that true faith is about yielding to God's guidance, trusting that His wisdom surpasses human understanding. Whether it's in times of joy or in times of suffering, both the Bible and the Quran teach that faith is a form of submission to God's plan, submission to His will, and the understanding that, in the end, He knows what is best for us. But as he compared these two approaches to faith, What struck him most was how both texts speak to the human struggle. The Bible talks about the trials of Job, the moments of doubt and suffering that test our faith, yet through it all, Job's faith remained unshaken. The Quran speaks of patience and perseverance, teaching that faith is not about avoiding hardship, but about facing it with strength, knowing that God is with you through it all. Both texts acknowledge that faith isn't always easy, that there will be times when you question, when you struggle, but that faith, when grounded in truth, will guide you through the darkest moments. At the end of the day, what he discovered was that the role of faith in both the Bible and the Quran is to transform the believer. It's not just about belief for belief's sake, but about living out that belief in every action, in every word, in every relationship. It's about building a life that reflects the values of mercy, justice, compassion, and truth. And whether you are looking at it through the lens of Christianity or Islam, the role of faith remains clear. It's the foundation on which everything else is built, and without it, nothing can stand. When he saw this, when he truly understood this connection, he was left in awe, not just of the power of faith, but of the universality of it. It was a truth that transcended religious boundaries, a truth that united the Bible and the Quran in a way he hadn't expected. It was a truth that, if embraced, could change the world. And in that moment, he knew that this journey of discovery was only just beginning. Faith, as he had come to understand, wasn't just a belief. It was the beginning of everything. And when you build your life on faith, there is nothing that can shake you. As he continued his journey of comparing the Bible and the Quran, he soon realized that the stories of the prophets were not just historical accounts. They were living lessons, lessons that transcended time and place. These stories were woven deeply into the fabric of both texts, not just as tales of old, but as powerful narratives meant to guide and inspire those who would read them. The stories were mirrors into human nature, holding up examples of strength, of failure, of redemption, and of the unyielding faith in a higher power. What he discovered was profound. These stories were not just about the individuals involved, but about all of us. In the Bible, the stories of the prophets unfold in vivid detail. Take the story of Noah, for example. In the Bible, Noah is called upon by God to build an ark, to save not only his family, but the animals of the earth from a flood that will cleanse the world of its corruption. It wasn't just about the physical act of building the ark. It was about the unwavering faith Noah had in God's command, despite the ridicule he faced, despite the overwhelming task before him. His story teaches us about obedience, about following God's will even when it seems illogical or when others doubt us. And the message isn't confined to Noah's time. We can all relate to moments when we are called to step out in faith, to take a stand even when the world doesn't understand, to trust in a higher purpose when everything around us seems uncertain. As he moved on to the Quran, he found the story of Noah, or Nuh, to be strikingly similar, yet with its own unique perspective. In the Quran, Noah is portrayed not only as a prophet, but as a persistent servant of God who faces rejection from his own people. Despite his tireless efforts to guide them, the people continue to mock and ignore him, but Nuh's faith never wavers. The Quran emphasizes the emotional and spiritual toll of this rejection, showing that true faith isn't just about following God when it's easy, it's about holding firm in belief when the world pushes back. The Quran also speaks about the flood, but it frames the story as both a mercy and a warning, a reminder that faith and repentance are always possible, but that there are consequences for those who choose to turn away. What he began to see in these stories wasn't just religious doctrine. It was the essence of the human experience. Whether in the Bible or the Quran, the prophets were not perfect beings, but they were human beings who faced incredible trials, who made mistakes, who were tested by faith in ways most of us will never fully understand. But through their stories, we are reminded that the path of righteousness is not easy, but it is worth it. It's about perseverance, about standing firm in the face of adversity, about trusting that God's plan is always greater than our own. Take the story of Abraham, known as Ibrahim in the Quran. Both the Bible and the Quran tell of a man who was willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of his faith, even his own son. In the Bible, Abraham's faith is tested when God commands him to sacrifice his son Isaac. His willingness to obey, despite the immense pain it would cause him, is a testament to his complete trust in God's will. The Quran echoes this story, but includes the name of Ibrahim's son as Ismail. In both texts, the act of submission, of surrendering to God's command without question, is central. This act of faith, of ultimate submission, is portrayed not as blind obedience, but as a deep understanding that God's wisdom is infinite, and that what he asks is always for the greater good. The story of Abraham teaches us that real faith is not about our own desires, but about aligning our will with the divine will, even when it challenges us in ways we can't yet comprehend. The story of Moses, or Musa, is another example of a prophet whose life and struggles are found in both texts. In the Bible, Moses is the liberator of the Israelites, the one who leads them out of slavery in Egypt, parting the Red Sea and confronting Pharaoh with the power of God's authority. His life is one of miraculous events of deliverance and of enduring faith, even when the people he led doubted him, when they rebelled, when they questioned the very existence of the God who had delivered them. In the Quran, Musa's story is similarly filled with miracles, but it also delves deeper into the emotional struggles of the prophet, showing his doubts, his fears, and his challenges in leading a people who often turned away from God's guidance. The Quran shows Musa's vulnerability and his moments of uncertainty, offering a powerful lesson that faith does not require perfection, it requires persistence, courage, and a willingness to trust in God's plan, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. These stories are more than just narratives. They are blueprints for living, for navigating the complexities of life. They teach us about the inner strength that can come from faith, the importance of resilience, the need for perseverance in the face of hardship. They remind us that we are not alone in our struggles, that the challenges we face have been faced by the greatest of men and women throughout history. And while the circumstances may differ, the lessons remain timeless. The comparison of these stories from the Bible and the Quran made him realize that, no matter the culture, no matter the era, the struggles of the prophets were meant to be mirrors for us. They were meant to reflect our own lives, our own trials, our own moments of doubt and courage, our own need for guidance. These stories, though ancient, still speak to the heart of every believer, still provide lessons that are relevant today, still remind us that faith is not just a passive belief, but an active force that shapes how we live, how we treat others, and how we endure. And so, as he reflected on these prophetic tales, he couldn't help but be struck by the power of their message, a message that transcends time and place, a message that calls us to rise above our circumstances, to trust in God's wisdom, and to carry on with unwavering faith. The stories of the prophets in both the Bible and the Quran are not just stories of the past. They are living reminders of how to live in the present, how to face our own challenges, and how to find the strength to move forward. They are not just about following rules or commandments. They are about following the example of those who walked this earth with faith in their hearts and a deep trust in the will of God. And in that trust, they found the strength to overcome, to endure, and to inspire generations to come. As he continued his exploration of the Bible and the Quran, he soon discovered that both texts offer a profound understanding of the laws and teachings that govern the lives of their followers. It wasn't just about the commandments or the rules. It was about a framework for living a way of life designed to bring about justice, peace, and harmony among people. What he found was that both the Bible and the Quran place great emphasis on the importance of moral conduct, ethics, and personal responsibility. They were not simply books of religious rituals or traditions. They were blueprints for how to live a righteous life in a world full of distractions, injustices, and suffering. In the Bible, the laws are presented in a way that emphasizes love as the foundation of all ethical behavior. Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, famously summarized the entire law with the commandment to love thy neighbor as thyself. This wasn't just about following a set of rules. It was about understanding the spirit behind the laws, understanding that the true purpose of the law is to cultivate love, kindness, and compassion for others. The laws in the Bible serve as a guide, not just for personal behavior, but for building a just society. The Ten Commandments, for instance, focus on principles like honesty, respect for life, and honoring one's parents' core values that are fundamental to maintaining social harmony and personal integrity. But the teachings of Jesus go further, emphasizing forgiveness, mercy, and the need to serve others. It wasn't just about following the law for the sake of obedience. It was about embodying the love of God in every action, in every word, and in every interaction. When he turned to the Quran, he found that the laws presented there were similarly grounded in the concept of justice. But there was a distinct emphasis on submission to the will of God and on the importance of maintaining balance. The Quran speaks about the necessity of following divine law, or Sharia, as a way to create a society that is just, fair, and equitable. But it wasn't just about the external observance of laws. It was about the inner submission to God's will, about aligning one's actions with divine guidance. The Quran emphasizes the need to maintain justice in all things, from personal interactions to the administration of the state. In Surah Al-Baqarah, for example, God commands the believers to stand firm for justice, as witnesses for God, even though it be against yourselves. This call to justice is not just a directive. It's a fundamental part of the Quranic world. That faith is not just about personal salvation, but about the collective well-being of society. The Quran also places a strong emphasis on personal responsibility, with numerous verses highlighting the importance of honesty, humility, and integrity. The concept of accountability before God is central to the Quranic teachings. In Surah Al-Imran, God reminds the believers that each soul will be recompensed for what it has earned. This sense of personal accountability is a powerful motivator to live righteously, knowing that every action will be weighed and judged by God. But the Quran also provides a framework for the community, emphasizing the need for social justice, care for the poor, and the protection of the rights of women and children. Just as the Bible calls for a compassionate society, the Quran calls for a society built on justice and fairness, one that upholds the rights of every individual, regardless of their status or position. What he found striking was how both the Bible and the Quran emphasized the balance between individual responsibility and communal duty. Both texts recognize that humans are part of a larger societal fabric, and that true righteousness is not just about personal piety, but about working toward the betterment of society as a whole. In the Bible, this is reflected in the teachings of Jesus, who constantly challenged his followers to care for the poor, the oppressed, and the marginalized. In the Quran, the concept of charity, or zakat, is seen as an essential act of worship, one that purifies the wealth of the giver and ensures that society's most vulnerable are taken care of. Both texts emphasize the importance of supporting the less fortunate, and the notion that a just society can only exist when its members act in harmony, respecting the dignity of all people. As he continued to study the laws and teachings in both texts, he began to see the connection between them in a new light. It wasn't just about the laws themselves, but about the underlying principles that shaped those laws, principles of justice, compassion, and respect for human dignity. Both the Bible and the Quran teach that the purpose of the law is not to burden people, but to free them from the shackles of selfishness, greed, and injustice. The laws are meant to guide people to live in harmony with one another, to foster relationships based on respect and fairness, and to create communities where individuals can thrive in both this life and the next. In his comparison, he also saw the way that both texts place a strong emphasis on mercy and forgiveness as central to the law. The Bible teaches that forgiveness is key to maintaining peace, as seen in Jesus' teachings to forgive others 70 times 7. The Quran similarly teaches that forgiveness is a virtue that should be embraced, reminding the believers that God is the most merciful of the merciful, and that those who forgive others will be rewarded by God. The laws in both texts are not meant to be harsh or punitive. They are meant to encourage personal growth, reconciliation, and healing within the community. Ultimately, what he discovered through his deep dive into the laws and teachings of both the Bible and the Quran was that they are not just sets of rules, they are calls to action. They are invitations to live a life of purpose, to align one's actions with divine principles of justice, mercy, and compassion. Whether in the Bible or the Quran, the laws serve as a reminder that our faith must be reflected in our actions, that we are called to make the world a better place, to treat others with dignity, and to seek justice for all. In the end, both texts teach that the purpose of the law is not merely to control or restrict, but to uplift and guide. These laws, deeply rooted in the love and justice of God, provide the framework for living a righteous life, a life where we are accountable not only to God, but to each other. A life where the well-being of the community is just as important as our own personal salvation. Through this understanding, he realized that these laws were not barriers. They were bridges to a better world, a more just world, a more compassionate world. And in that realization, he felt a profound sense of hope, knowing that these teachings, if embraced, could transform not just individuals, but entire societies. As he delved deeper into the comparison between the Bible and the Quran, he began to realize that both texts, though different in form and structure, shared a common thread: the ultimate call for peace. This peace wasn't just about the absence of conflict or the end of violence. It was about a deeper, more profound peace that starts within the individual and extends outward into the world. Both the Bible and the Quran call for peace as a central aspect of faith, urging their followers to seek peace in their hearts, in their homes, and in their communities. It became clear to him that true peace was not just an external state of affairs, but an internal condition that must be nurtured through faith, understanding, and compassion. In the Bible, the concept of peace is often referred to as shalom, a Hebrew word that encompasses much more than the absence of war or strife. It speaks to a sense of wholeness, well-being, and completeness. In the Old Testament, peace is presented as a gift from God, something that God offers to his people in times of difficulty, as seen in the story of the Israelites' journey through the desert. God promises peace to those who follow his commands and trust in his provision. In the New Testament, Jesus speaks of peace frequently, most notably when he says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives." This peace, as Jesus describes it, is not fleeting or dependent on circumstances. It is a peace that transcends human understanding, a peace that comes from knowing God and being in harmony with his will. Jesus' message of peace is a radical one. He calls his followers not just to seek peace in their own lives, but to actively make peace with others. He teaches that true peace requires reconciliation, that one must forgive those who have wronged them and seek to restore broken relationships. The Beatitudes, for instance, highlight the importance of peace in the life of a believer. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. This is not just a call to avoid conflict, but a call to actively work towards peace, to bring healing and restoration to a broken world. It's a peace that requires self-sacrifice, humility, and a willingness to go the extra mile for the sake of others. The Quran, too, places immense importance on peace, but it frames it within the context of submission to the will of God. The word Islam itself comes from the root word salam, which means peace. From the very core of the faith, peace is a guiding principle. In the Quran, peace is not just a passive state, but an active pursuit, a pursuit that begins with submission to God and extends to interactions with others. The Quran speaks of peace as something to be sought after and nurtured, both in the individual's relationship with God and with others. And if they incline to peace, then incline to it. The Quran says in Surah Al-Anfal, this verse highlights that peace is not just a goal, but an approach to life, an approach that involves choosing peace even when there is a temptation to resort to violence or conflict. The Quran also speaks of peace in terms of justice, emphasizing that peace cannot exist without justice. It calls on its followers to work towards a world where justice prevails, where the rights of the oppressed are protected, and where those who have wronged others seek to make amends. In Surah Al-Baqarah, God instructs the believers to fight in the way of God those who fight you, but do not transgress. Indeed, God does not like transgressors. This call to justice is not just about physical warfare, but about ensuring fairness and balance in all areas of life. The Quran teaches that peace and justice are inseparable, that true peace can only exist when justice is upheld and when everyone's rights are respected. Both the Bible and the Quran stress that peace is something that must be cultivated within the individual before it can be extended outward. The peace that Jesus offers to his followers is not merely the absence of turmoil, but a deep, abiding sense of calm that comes from trusting in God's plan. Similarly, the Quran teaches that peace is a result of submitting to the will of God, of surrendering one's own desires and ego for the greater good of the community and the world. In both traditions, peace begins within the heart. It is a peace that transcends circumstances, a peace that endures even in the midst of adversity. This internal peace, when nurtured, has the power to transform relationships and communities, fostering an environment where people can live in harmony despite their differences. One of the most powerful messages he discovered was that peace requires effort. It's not something that comes easily or automatically. In both the Bible and the Quran, peace is something that must be pursued actively and intentionally. Jesus teaches his followers to love their enemies, to pray for those who persecute them, and to forgive those who have wronged them. The Quran similarly teaches that peace can only be achieved when individuals choose to act justly, to show compassion, and to forgive. Both texts call for an active, deliberate pursuit of peace, a peace that doesn't come from avoiding conflict, but from working through it in a spirit of humility and grace. What he found most striking was how both texts, in their own unique ways, encourage reconciliation and the healing of divisions. Jesus teaches that before offering a gift at the altar, one should first be reconciled with their brother or sister. The Quran also emphasizes reconciliation, urging the believers to settle disputes amicably whenever possible, and to forgive those who have wronged them. This call to reconciliation is a powerful reminder that peace isn't just about avoiding conflict. It's about restoring relationships, healing wounds, and building bridges where walls once stood. In the end, what he discovered was a universal truth. True peace is not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice, mercy, and love. Whether in the Bible or the Quran, peace is an active pursuit, a pursuit that requires each of us to look beyond our own desires and seek the well-being of others. And when that peace takes root in the hearts of individuals, it has the power to transform families, communities, and the world. He understood that the call to peace, found in both the Bible and the Quran, was not just a message for the past. It was a message for today, for now, for all of us, and it was a message worth living by. As he continued his study of the Bible and the Koran, he began to see that both texts, though distinct in their approach, emphasized the central importance of faith in shaping one's character and actions. Faith wasn't merely an abstract concept or a mental acknowledgement of God's existence. It was a living, breathing force that transformed the way a person interacts with the world. It was about more than belief. It was about trust, submission, and unwavering commitment to the divine. What struck him most was how both the Bible and the Koran placed such a high value on faith as the foundation of righteous living, but also how each faith tradition emphasized that true belief manifests through action, through works, through the way we live and interact with others. In the Bible, faith is presented as the cornerstone of the Christian life. From the Old Testament, where the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob exemplify a deep, trusting relationship with God, to the New Testament, where Jesus redefines the understanding of faith as something that moves beyond rituals to a transformative way of living, faith is shown as the power that fuels a believer's journey. The letter to the Hebrews describes faith as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, emphasizing that faith is not just about intellectual acknowledgement, but about a deep spiritual trust in God's promises. Abraham in particular is revered in the Bible for his unwavering faith, not just in God's existence, but in God's power to fulfill his promises, even when they seemed impossible. His willingness to sacrifice his son Isaac at God's command is seen as the ultimate act of faith, an act that demonstrated not only his belief in God, but his absolute trust in God's plan. This trust wasn't blind or passive. It was an active, living faith that guided his decisions, his actions, and ultimately his entire life. The Apostle Paul, too, stresses the importance of faith throughout his letters. In his epistle to the Romans, he writes, "The just shall live by faith," underscoring the idea that faith isn't just something that saves a person in the afterlife, but something that shapes their present life. It is the lens through which a believer sees the world and the strength that empowers them to live righteously. For Paul, faith is central to salvation, but it is also central to the way believers engage with the world around them. It leads to acts of love, kindness, and service to others, and it brings peace that surpasses all understanding. Faith is the force that empowers believers to love their neighbors, to forgive their enemies, and to show compassion to the marginalized and oppressed. Turning to the Koran, he saw a similar yet uniquely different emphasis on the role of faith in shaping one's life. In Islam, faith, or Iman, is not simply about acknowledging the existence of God, but about a profound submission to His will. The Koran teaches that faith requires complete trust in God's wisdom, power, and mercy, and that this trust must be demonstrated through one's actions. In Surah Al-Baqarah, God declares that the believers are only those who, when God is mentioned, their hearts tremble, and when His verses are recited to them, they increase in faith. This shows that faith is not merely intellectual assent. It is an emotional and spiritual experience that affects the heart, compelling the believer to act in ways that reflect their trust in God. In the Koran, faith is closely linked to action. It is not enough to simply believe in God. One must also follow His guidance, perform acts of worship, and live in a way that reflects His commands. The Koran teaches that faith without good deeds is incomplete. In Surah Al-Asr, the Koran says, "By time indeed, mankind is in loss, except for those who have believed and done righteous deeds, and advised each other to truth, and advised each other to patience." This verse makes it clear that belief is not enough on its own. It must be accompanied by righteous deeds, by actions that demonstrate one's faith and commitment to the teachings of God. The Prophet Muhammad P. himself exemplified the perfect balance between faith and action. His life was a living testament to the Quranic principle that faith without action is incomplete. He didn't just preach about the oneness of God and the importance of faith. He embodied those teachings in every aspect of his life. From his acts of charity, to his kindness towards others, to his dedication to justice, the prophet showed that true faith is not just something you profess, it's something you live. His actions reflected his deep belief in God's commands and his unwavering commitment to bringing about justice and compassion in the world. His life was a model of how faith transforms not just the heart, but every aspect of a person's behavior, interactions, and decisions. As he reflected on these teachings, he began to realize that the Bible and the Quran both stress the idea that faith is not passive. It is something that must be cultivated and nurtured every day. It requires discipline, effort, and a willingness to submit to a higher power. It is not just about believing in God's existence, but about trusting his plan, following his guidance, and aligning one's actions with his will. Faith, in both traditions, is not something that can be compartmentalized into a specific time or place. It is a way of life, a world-view that permeates every decision, every relationship, and every action. Through his study, he discovered that the foundation of both the Bible and the Quran is a call to live with faith, to allow that faith to guide one's actions, and to transform not only the individual but the world around them. In both texts, faith is seen as the bedrock of righteousness, and it is through this faith that individuals find the strength to overcome life's challenges, to endure hardships, and to remain committed to justice, mercy, and love. And so, he understood that the discovery of this shared emphasis on faith was not just about understanding the teachings of two distinct religious traditions. It was about understanding the deeper connection between belief and action, that true faith is something that shapes who we are, what we do, and how we treat others. Faith is not just a matter of the heart and mind. It is a force that transforms the world through our actions. In the end, he realized that faith in both the Bible and the Quran is not just about belief in God. It is about believing in the power of that belief to change lives, to heal the broken, to uplift the downtrodden, and to bring peace to a fractured world.